Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Daily Recap. What is January 15th, 2018? Of course, I am Breaky CPK, and definitely still a fair amount to talk today. As I mentioned going into today's Daily Recap, I didn't think we'd have a lot to really discuss. There isn't still a crazy amount, but getting right into it, a couple of final results taking place, really wrapping up what's been these three qualifiers that have been happening. One, the Starlighter Minor, and of course the ESO Katowice Major, as well as the PGL Bucharest Major. So a couple more regions finishing up, but then also a little bit more information coming about the whole Fnatic roster change situation. The Ohaiyo giving a response, giving his take even on how everything went down, a little bit of a response as well from Eternal Envy. We'll discuss that and give our thoughts on the whole situation and how it went down. But first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the results as mentioned. So the PGL Bucharest Major happening. Two more regions needed to figure that out before it's ultimately good to go. One of those being CIS, again the finals being Suicide Team versus Vega Squadron. This Suicide Team squad, they defeated Team Spirit, M19, as well as Team Empire to get to the finals. Three very solid teams, no doubt. And again, you look at the roster. So when you look at the roster, it's not maybe as surprising, but still, this is not a team you would have expected to see in the finals, I think it's safe to say, of a major qualifier, but they got all the way. Unfortunately for them, they come up short against Vega Squadron, and they lose 2-0 in the finals. Obviously for Vega Squadron, big congratulations. They've also been trying to find their footing ever since they made their roster change, making their changes here, and they qualify for a major now. I want to say this is actually their first major qualifier, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, again, there hasn't really been many that have taken place. Yeah, this was technically the fourth one. I believe, well, we had Dream League as well as the very first one, which was the first ESL event. So, yeah, congratulations to Vega Squadron. Going to represent CIS at the event, of course, joining Virtus Pro, who is one of the invited teams. So you see the 16 teams that are ultimately going, including the 10 invited, as well as the 6 qualified that are going to be advancing on. Oh, that's actually a spoiler because the Southeast Asian region is also a final that happened earlier this morning, late last night. And TNC, they had to get through Fnatic initially, but then they defeated Execration in the finals. 2-0 overall, more of a simple series. It did take about an hour in game number 2. But again, winning that one, 2-0, and moving on to the major. So TNC, of course, one of the stronger teams, as I expected, going into the Southeast Asian qualifiers this season. And they will be making it to the PGL Bucharest Major, of course. So big congratulations to them. Again, they're going to be joining Vineski, who was the invited team out of Southeast Asia, going along too. So again, there you look at the 16 teams now. It's all played out. We have all 16s for the PGL Bucharest. We have just about every team for the ESL event. I believe that we still need to figure out one more for them through some kind of system. I don't even know exactly what that's going to be yet. And then the Starlighter Minor, of course, going to be happening as well. So really excited for that. The next set of qualifiers, I believe, could be starting, if I'm not mistaken, could be starting either later this week into next week. Of course, the event that's most soon coming up is the Galaxy Battles Tournament, which, as the week moves on here, as we get closer to the weekend, we'll start previewing, again, the event, and it's happening. I mean, simply put, it's happening. OG, I know for a fact, is there. I know talent is starting to fly out and everything, so the event is definitely taking place. We're still kind of waiting to see exactly what the format and everything and on what scale it's going to be, but it's going to be happening. We'll preview that as the week gets a little bit closer here. All right, so that leads us into the whole Fnatic situation. Again, in case you missed it, Fnatic officially made the point that they were replacing Ohaiyo with Universe, so ultimately removing Ohaiyo from the team, picking up Universe as a result, and Universe is officially the new 5th of Fnatic. So this happened right after the team had actually qualified for the ESO1 Katowice tournament major, that is. So especially with that on top of that, it did bring up some a lot of discussion / a lot of outrage, frankly, towards Fnatic as an organization and towards Eternal Envy especially being the leader behind it all. I didn't really touch on that too much when this announcement first happened, mainly because the most I really got into it was it is a business in a lot of ways. I mean, you see traditional sports as well. Sometimes roster changes happen that at unopportune times. And yes, the team had just happened to qualify for a major, but these events are constantly going on. So was there really a more exact, precise window? And especially for a player like Universe of his caliber, there's only so long that he's going to be available. I'm sure it also was part of the thinking process. So ultimately, they decided to make the move, and it happened, again, right after they happened to qualify for ESL, and thus Ohaiyo was removed. Now, Ohaiyo did kind of give his take on the situation. He made a Facebook post about it. Obviously, I don't want to read this whole thing here necessarily, but the TLDR is essentially he feels like it was a very unprofessional situation. There was no communication whatsoever. There was no reason for him to believe that he was going to be removed from the team after they qualified even. Apparently, they qualified and then they went to get a pizza dinner to celebrate, and then it was after that dinner where he was informed by apparently the Fnatic coach as well as the manager that Universe was actually in Southeast Asia at that point, and the team has decided that, and he was actually staying with Eternal Envy, almost kind of behind his back in some ways, but that he was staying with Eternal Envy, and it was decided that no matter the result, this was going to happen as far as this player change. So they announced it right there that he was going to be removed, and they were going to be replacing him with Universe. Now, obviously, again, it's even knowing this information, I still stand by the idea that as shitty as it is for somebody like Ohaiyo, especially for all that he's dedicated for the organization and everything, it's the business side of this, unfortunately. Now, we do not know the exact contract of the situation, so I will say I hope, especially for Ohio's sake, and, knowing Fnatic and how long they've been around and how professional they seem to be, I would assume that there was some kind of buyout, essentially, that had to take place before, making this transition. So it's not like they're just leaving Ohaiyo completely cut and dry. Maybe more information will come on that in the future, and, if it has come to found that they're leaving him high and dry and he's not getting anything ultimately, he helped his team qualify, and they didn't even have to buy out his contract, they're just simply cutting him because that's what they can do, then yes, I think that's another line that will cross, if that is the case. I don't feel like that was the case, so I'm going to assume that there was some kind of buyout here in the situation, and thus Ohaiyo, maybe it's still not a significant amount by any means, but at least, there was something that happened to trigger this move and to allow it to take place via contracts. Obviously, this does bring up the importance of getting player contracts and the players having representation, which there definitely is not enough of in the esports world. Esports in general is still in a very, very Wild West phase, and this is a discussion that can go on for hours, and, I could talk with many different people about it. It might be cool, actually, to talk with somebody in the management side that maybe deals with this to get more information because, frankly, I've been around the scene for a long time, but personally I haven't had to deal with player contracts specifically. So I would like to bring on an expert to maybe get their take on it and to also, see how things may have stood and what they feel about this whole situation and from a business side. But it goes back, again, from the personal level, it sucks because, as Ohio's pointing out right here, it was done very cheaply, very unprofessional, and Eternal Envy, let's just say, has history in terms of making changes like this, most notably last year, of course, with what was Team NP at the time. It kind of came out of nowhere, it felt like, and I even got the chance to talk with 1437 about it in an interview last year when he moved on to TNC after the fact, but he was cut along with SVG from Team NP, and it really caught them off guard. And it all stems from Eternal Envy, and apparently he's not the most sociable. He's not the best at making these decisions in terms of making a final, I guess, being the most professional about it. So, but again, this is what now. Okay, I think this is a good time to bring up. Eternal Envy did make a response earlier this morning as well on the whole situation, And he did go on to say, the way the kick was done was awful. I take full responsibility for that. I do not regret my decision, though, even if we got last place. So essentially he's saying he does feel bad. He maybe they could have handled it a little better, but he doesn't regret making the move. And, I get that. Again, he wouldn't have made this move in the first place if he didn't feel it was necessary for the benefit of the team. Obviously, will it work out in the end? I personally do think it has high potential to work out, and I think it very likely could, but I do completely understand in the case of Ohaiyo, because of how long he's been with the team and how much of a fan base he has there in Southeast Asia, etc., why there's so much uproar on the whole situation. And why now they're getting so many enemies now, essentially, of people are hoping that they fail now. Which, again, Eternal Envy specifically, I feel like he's just kind of used to that. So, but that's been the trend, though. Fnatic picked up Eternal Envy ultimately with the intentions of giving him reigns. Eternal Envy is one of these players in the scene where you build a team around him. At least these organizations have thought that. Whether or not that is the case or that should be the case, again, I don't know if I'm sold on that. I feel like time has kind of told us that as great of a player and a leader as Eternal Envy is, maybe it hasn't necessarily been the best in the end. Now, are there enough kind of leaders out there where that you can build a team around? Perhaps that is part of it. Obviously, we're going to get more information from this season, now that he's working in Southeast Asia. Now he has, I think it's safe to say, a full roster that he's perhaps very confident with going into it. But it's really going to be something to see how this all plays out now for them. Again, it's going to be even more pressure for Universe. Obviously, they made their debut against TNC the other day, and they did come out on the losing end in the PGL Bucharest major semifinals. And again, there was a lot of happy people for that, saying how Ohaiyo died for this and how TNC qualified, and that was because Ohaiyo and the whole situation there. So, long story short, I'm fine that the move was made. Because, there was one other thing that I did want to bring up as well on it all. I am ultimately fine with the move was made because, if anything, too, there is this roster lock situation that we are going through. And to be fair, there was only so much time that Fnatic did have, and frankly any team does have, and we're coming up here where within a couple of weeks, that's it. You're not going to be able to make any more roster changes. So I could see the idea that, yes, these qualifiers are still going on, and maybe they could have waited at the very least till the qualifiers were actually finished, but they decided they wanted to make the move. Universe being a hot presence in the free agent market as well. Understandable. They want to make sure to get on top of it. And I say they, as in Fnatic, but, again, it goes back to, I'm sure it really was just mostly Eternal Envy making the decisions here on this. But done professionally, could it have been handled a little bit better? Yes, but, when you look at it from that perspective, too, what were they going to do? Tell Ohaiyo that he was going to be replaced, but they still expect him to play well with the team? I mean, yes, they used him. They did use him in a lot of ways, and obviously they knew, Eternal Envy specifically, knew that this change was coming. He just purposely did not tell Ohaiyo. And again, I understand how that's seen as just very scumbag-ish, and frankly is in a lot of ways, but the business side suggests that he is allowed to do that, and with the way the contracts work and everything, with the whole closing of the roster situation coming up, needed to make the move, and he felt that this was for the better. He wanted to make sure that at least, he could help him qualify for the one major. He did, and now life moves on. So, again, that's kind of my ultimate take on it. Ultimately, I'm overall fine that it happened. I do think maybe it could have been done a little bit smoother, but I do get it. So, all right, we'll see how results continue to play out, though, for this Fnatic team, though. I was super excited for this Fnatic squad going, especially when they picked up Abed. I was definitely really excited. I still am I don't want to call myself a fan of Fnatic by any means, but I wouldn't mind seeing them do well. But again, I understand that there's the crowd out there that is definitely not a fan of them now and sees them as the evil empire of sorts, so, or the anime betrayal that's been going around with Eternal Envy. All right, though. Anyways, that's the Taylor recap, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. So maybe we'll get some more updates on this drama come tomorrow. But as far as January 15th, 2018 goes, that officially is going to do it. So leave any comments below on the YouTube channel if you have any feedback or whatnot. Obviously, follow me on Twitter and Facebook, as well as my Twitch channel. all over the place on social media. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.